The passport belonged to a man who had been dead for 6 years. Nora Hayes knew that before the computer finished loading his photograph. She sat alone beneath the cold fluorescent lights of the FBI intelligence station inside Boston Logan Airport, one hand resting beside a cooling cup of coffee, while snow struck the dark windows beyond the private terminal. At 2:13 in the morning, most of the airport had settled into its strange overnight silence. The distant whine of maintenance vehicles, the occasional announcement echoing through empty concourses, the soft mechanical breathing of a building that never truly slept. On Nora's screen, the diplomatic passport appeared perfectly legitimate. The name was Mikhail Antonov. The nationality was Serbian. The clearance code belonged to an international trade delegation scheduled to land at the private terminal in 17 minutes. The biometric markers matched. The diplomatic seals matched. Even the encrypted State Department authorization matched. Only one detail was wrong. Mikhail Antonov had been buried in Prague 6 years earlier. Nora leaned closer. She was 34, sharp-eyed, plus-size, and accustomed to being treated as if her body made her less observant than everyone else in the room. Senior agents spoke over her during briefings. Supervisors described her as dependable when they meant harmless. Men who had never spent an overnight shift tracing shell company flight plans through 12 jurisdictions called her work administrative. They stopped laughing only after she proved them wrong. By then, they usually pretended the discovery had been theirs. Nora opened the archived death certificate and compared the document numbers. Same man, same birth date, same right thumb pattern, dead in a Prague hotel fire. Yet his passport had crossed the United States border 13 times since his death. She pulled up the travel history. Rome, Geneva, Montreal, Boston, Washington. Every arrival occurred less than 48 hours before a protected federal witness was murdered or disappeared. Nora's pulse changed. Not racing, not yet. It became quieter, more focused, the way it always did when scattered data stopped looking scattered. She reached for the secure phone. Her overnight supervisor, Special Agent Leonard Briggs, answered on the fourth ring with irritation already in his voice. "What is it, Hayes?" "I need an immediate hold placed on an incoming diplomatic passenger." "On what grounds?" "The passport is registered to a deceased individual." A pause, then a tired exhale. "Diplomatic system glitches happen." "This isn't a glitch. The identity has entered the country 13 times since the subject's death. Send it to State. The flight lands in 15 minutes. Then let State handle it in 14. Nora looked through the glass wall toward Briggs's office. He was visible inside, leaning back in his chair, tie loosened, attention fixed on a basketball game playing silently on his second monitor. "Sir, the passport activity correlates with 6 confirmed witness murders and 3 disappearances." That made him look up, not with alarm, with annoyance. "Hayes, do you know who is on that aircraft?" "The manifest is restricted." "Exactly. It's restricted. That means someone above your pay grade decided you don't need to know. A dead man is traveling under diplomatic immunity. And you're an analyst, not a field agent." The familiar dismissal landed exactly where it always did. Nora kept her voice even. "I'm placing an internal fraud flag on the document. You are not authorized to interfere with a diplomatic arrival. I'm authorized to flag identity anomalies. Not this one." The speed of his answer chilled her more than the winter pressing against the windows. Nora glanced at the system log. Briggs had not opened the passport record. He had not seen the name, yet he already knew which arrival she meant. "Sir," she said slowly, "how did you know the manifest was diplomatic?" The office lights went out. Every monitor in the intelligence station turned black. For 1 second, Logan Airport disappeared into darkness. Then red emergency lights ignited along the ceiling. A steel security shutter dropped over the hallway entrance with a violent crash. Nora rose from her chair. Beyond the glass, Briggs stood too quickly and knocked his coffee across his desk. The secure phone went dead in Nora's hand. From the private runway came the low thunder of jet engines. A black aircraft emerged through the snow. It was not marked with a flag, corporate logo, or registration number. Its dark fuselage reflected the runway lights as it taxied toward the terminal with the slow confidence of something that expected the world to move out of its path. Before it stopped, black SUVs began pouring through the service gate, one after another. 8, 10, 12. They moved across the snow in a precise formation, surrounding the aircraft before the stairs touched the ground. Men in dark coats stepped out. Nora had read enough classified briefings to recognize organized power when she saw it. These were not street soldiers displaying weapons for intimidation. Their coats remained closed. Their movements were controlled. Every man knew exactly which doorway, rooftop, vehicle, and window belonged to him. The aircraft door opened. Lucian Moretti descended alone. Nora had seen surveillance photographs of him. None of them had captured the silence that seemed to descend with him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a black overcoat over a charcoal suit. Snow settled briefly in his dark hair before melting. His face was composed rather than cruel, which somehow made him more dangerous. He moved without hurry, while armed men spread around him, as though urgency was something that happened only to other people. Lucian Moretti controlled Boston's ports, private security contracts, luxury construction projects, and enough criminal territory to make federal prosecutors lower their voices when they said his name. He was also listed in 3 intelligence databases as a suspected trafficker, racketeer, and head of the Moretti crime organization. No arrest had ever survived long enough to reach trial. Nora looked down at the dead man's passport displayed on her emergency monitor. Arrival passenger, Lucian Moretti. The false identity belonged to him. A side door opened somewhere behind her. Nora turned. 2 men in black entered the intelligence station through a maintenance passage that should have required federal credentials. Neither raised a weapon. "Ms. Hayes," one said, "Mr. Moretti would like to speak with you. Mr. Moretti can speak to customs. He asked for you." Nora's fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. "How does he know my name?" Neither man answered. The steel shutter lifted just enough for them to pass beneath it. Nora should have refused. She should have triggered the emergency alarm, called airport police, or barricaded herself inside the intelligence station until federal reinforcements arrived. But the system was down. Her supervisor had known about the passport before seeing the record, and somewhere beneath her fear, the analyst in her needed to understand why the most feared man in Boston had crossed an ocean using the identity of a corpse. She followed them. The private terminal was nearly empty. A cleaning cart stood abandoned beside the wall. Snow blew through the open aircraft entrance, scattering across the polished floor. Security personnel remained frozen behind their counters, their faces pale beneath the red emergency lights. Lucian stood in the center of the terminal. He watched Nora approach. His gaze moved over her once, not dismissively, not with the quick judgment she had learned to recognize, but with the measured attention of a man memorizing evidence. She stopped several feet away. "You entered the United States using a fraudulent diplomatic passport," she said. No greeting, no hesitation. Something almost like approval touched his expression. "You flagged it," he said. "You expected someone not to?" "I expected the people paid to ignore it to continue doing their jobs." His voice was low and controlled, touched by an Italian-American cadence softened by years in Boston. Nora glanced toward the armed men positioned around the room. "If this is your idea of clearing up a misunderstanding, it's excessive. This is not a misunderstanding." "Then why are you here?" Lucian took one step closer. The terminal seemed to contract around him. "Who told you to look for me?" "No one." His eyes held hers. "Do not lie to me. I don't. Everyone does." "That sounds like a problem with the company you keep." One of his men shifted slightly. Lucian did not. For the first time, Nora saw something break through his composure. Not anger. Interest. "You found the death record yourself?" he asked. "I found 13 entries attached to 6 murdered witnesses." The interest vanished. His face became unreadable again. "Which 6? I'm not discussing a federal investigation with you. You do not have an investigation. I have enough to detain you." "No, Ms. Hayes. You have enough to get yourself killed." A door slammed at the far end of the terminal. A security officer ran from the private lounge. "Senator Rourke is gone." The name moved through the terminal like an electric current. Senator Evelyn Rourke chaired the Senate committee responsible for federal witness protection oversight. She had arrived at Logan less than an hour earlier for a private departure to Washington. Nora looked toward the sealed lounge. Gone how? The security officer struggled to breathe. Her detail was unconscious. The room was locked from the inside. Lucian turned sharply to one of his men. Seal every vehicle exit. They're already sealed. Then search below ground. Nora stared at him. You knew she was here. Lucian looked back at her. She was here to meet me. The first shot shattered the window behind him. Lucian moved before Nora heard the glass break. His arm locked around her waist and drove her to the floor as bullets tore across the terminal. Glass exploded above them. Men shouted. Security counters splintered. Nora struck the polished floor hard enough to lose her breath. Lucian covered her with his body. His overcoat spread over her like a shield, while gunfire hammered the walls. One of his hands braced beside her head. The other drew a pistol from beneath his coat and fired twice without looking away from her. The shooting from the mezzanine stopped. For one breathless second, neither of them moved. Nora could feel the weight of him, the heat of his body, the hard control in every muscle. His face was inches from hers. A thin line of blood marked his cheek where glass had cut him. "You're hit," she whispered. "It isn't mine." A second burst of gunfire erupted from the baggage corridor. Lucian pulled Nora upright. His hand remained around her wrist. Federal tactical agents poured through the main entrance at the same moment. Moretti's men closed around them. "FBI!" someone shouted. "Release the analyst!" Nora recognized the agent in command. Caleb Rowan, her former academy classmate, stood behind a ballistic shield with his weapon raised. "Nora," he called. "Get away from him." Lucian's grip tightened, not painfully, possessively. Caleb's team had arrived less than 90 seconds after the first shot. No federal response team could reach the private terminal that quickly, unless it had already been waiting nearby. Nora looked at their uniforms. The shoulder patches were correct. The body armor was correct. But 3 agents wore airport access badges from the same numerical sequence. Badges were issued individually. Sequential badges meant they had been printed together. Lucian followed her gaze. "You see it," he said quietly. Caleb took a step forward. "Nora, come to me." Her instincts pulled in opposite directions, toward the FBI emblem she had trusted for 11 years. Away from the impossible speed of their arrival, Lucian leaned close enough for only her to hear. "If you go with them, you will disappear before sunrise. You expect me to trust you? No." His eyes remained on Caleb's weapon. "I expect you to trust what you noticed." A rifle muzzle appeared above the tactical shield. It was aimed at Nora, not Lucian. She saw the movement a fraction before the shooter fired. Lucian dragged her behind a stone column. His men opened fire toward the ceiling, forcing the tactical team back. "Move," Lucian ordered. Nora should have resisted. Instead, she ran with him. They crossed the baggage corridor, descended a service staircase, and emerged into a restricted vehicle tunnel beneath the terminal. A black armored SUV waited with its rear door open. Nora stopped. "I'm not getting into that car." Lucian turned. Snowmelt glistened on his overcoat. His cheek was still bleeding. Behind them, gunfire echoed down the concrete stairwell. "You have 7 seconds to reconsider. And then what? I carry you." "You wouldn't." His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. "Do not test how much I am willing to do tonight." Footsteps thundered above them. Nora got into the SUV. Lucian followed. The vehicle accelerated before the door closed. Through the darkened window, Nora watched Logan Airport disappear behind a wall of snow and black vehicles. Her secure phone began vibrating in her coat pocket. The screen displayed one name: Deputy Director Marcus Sloan, her mentor, the man who had recruited her into federal intelligence. Lucian saw the screen. "Do not answer. He runs my division. He runs more than you understand." Nora accepted the call. "Sloan." His voice came through immediately, calm and fatherly. "Nora, listen carefully. Moretti has abducted Senator Rourke. He engineered the attack to remove you from federal custody. He didn't abduct me. Silence. Not long. Just long enough. Where are you? I'm safe. You are sitting beside a mafia boss. Lucian watched her without expression. Sloane continued. We believe Moretti is operating an international identity network using dead diplomatic personnel. The passport you found is evidence. I need you to activate the emergency location beacon on your phone so we can recover you. Nora looked through the windshield. The SUV entered the Ted Williams tunnel, city lights streaking across the black glass. Why was a tactical team already inside the terminal? She asked. Nora. They arrived before airport police. We had a protective detail monitoring Senator Rourke. They aimed at me. That was confusion during an active firefight. Lucian's mouth hardened. Sloane lowered his voice. You are frightened. I understand that. Activate the beacon, and we will bring you home. Home. The word pressed against Nora's fear. The FBI had been her life for more than a decade. Her badge sat inside her coat. Her security clearance had shaped where she lived, whom she trusted, and how carefully she spoke even to friends. Lucian Moretti was a criminal, a man connected to extortion, smuggling, and murder. Yet when the bullet came, the federal rifle had been aimed at her. Lucian had thrown himself over her. Give me proof Senator Rourke is alive, Nora said. We're trying to locate her. You said Moretti abducted her. We have intelligence. From whom? Sloane's warmth vanished. Activate the beacon, Agent Hayes. Nora looked at Lucian. He shook his head once. She ended the call. For several seconds, the only sound was the tires against the tunnel pavement. You disobeyed a deputy director, Lucian said. Don't sound impressed. I am deciding whether impressed is the correct word. What are the alternatives? Surprised, concerned, fascinated. Nora turned toward him. Why did you use that passport? To expose the person monitoring it. You used yourself as bait? I used a dead identity that should have been removed from the system 6 years ago. And you knew someone would notice? I knew someone had noticed before. A cold sensation moved through her. What does that mean? Lucian studied her face. Your reports. Nora went still. What reports? The travel anomaly assessments you filed over the last 18 months. 7 reports, linking diplomatic arrivals to protected witness movements. Every one of them was rejected. How did you read classified FBI reports? I did not read them inside the FBI. That isn't an answer. No, it is a warning. The SUV emerged into downtown Boston. Snow drifted between towers. Streets shone black beneath traffic lights. The city looked abandoned, beautiful, and dangerously still. Where are you taking me? Nora asked. Somewhere your agency cannot enter without making its betrayal public. That sounds like another way of saying I'm your prisoner. Lucian leaned back against the leather seat. If you were my prisoner, you would not still have your phone. Nora looked down. The device remained in her hand. And if I call for help? I will know exactly how much your help is worth. The SUV stopped beneath an old Beacon Hill townhouse surrounded by Moretti guards. Inside, the house was all dark wood, firelight, and silent luxury. No gaudy displays. No gold statues. Nothing that looked like the theatrical lair federal briefings had taught her to imagine. Lucian led her into a private library. On a long table lay photographs, passports, flight records, and death certificates. Nora approached slowly. There were dozens of identities. Men and women declared dead in Europe, Asia, and South America, whose passports continued crossing borders years afterward. Beside them were photographs of murdered federal witnesses. Nora recognized 3 cases from her own reports. What is this? She asked. A market. Lucian removed his overcoat. Beneath it, his suit jacket was torn near the shoulder from shattered glass. For 8 years, someone inside the United States government has been selling protected identities. Diplomatic passports are assigned to buyers who need to cross borders without inspection. Witness locations are included when the price is high enough. Janice, Nora whispered. Lucian's eyes sharpened. You know the name? I saw it once in an archived budget code. Identity continuity research. The file disappeared the next morning. It was never research. Nora lifted one of the photographs. A A woman in her 40s stood beside a courthouse entrance, smiling nervously. She entered witness protection after testifying against a trafficking organization, Nora said. She died in a house fire in Vermont. She was shot before the fire started. You investigated? I tried to move her before they reached her. The words were quiet. Nora looked up. You knew her? No. But you tried to save her. I do not need to know someone to understand what happens when the government sells their address. There was something beneath his voice, old and deeply buried. Before Nora could ask, a Moretti guard entered. We found the senator's car beneath Terminal E. Her driver is dead. No sign of Rourke. Lucian's jaw tightened. Search the harbor exits. The guard left. Nora examined the documents again. Why was Senator Rourke meeting you? She discovered Janice inside the witness protection budget and came to a mafia boss instead of the Department of Justice. She went to justice first. Lucian looked at her. 3 people died. Nora's phone vibrated again. A message from Caleb Rowan appeared. Nora, I can help you. Sloan is wrong. Send me anything that proves you're alive. Lucian saw her expression. The agent from the terminal? He was my friend. Was? I don't know. Uncertainty is a luxury tonight. You seem to know a great deal about certainty. I know what people do when fear becomes more valuable than loyalty. Nora met his gaze. And what do you do? I remove the fear. The answer should have frightened her. Instead, it sent a different kind of awareness through the room. Lucian stood close enough that she could see the faint cut on his cheek. He had protected her without hesitation, yet there was no softness in him, no apology for the men who might have died in the terminal, no attempt to pretend he was better than the world he ruled. He was dangerous. The honesty of it unsettled her more than a lie would have. I need access to a secure FBI terminal, Nora said. No. If I can compare these identities against internal travel logs, I can find the issuing office. The moment you enter the network, they find you. Then give me an isolated system. Lucian watched her. You are still trying to solve this. People are dead, so you intend to trust me long enough to investigate. I intend to trust the evidence. A faint change touched his face. Again, that quiet approval. I have a system downstairs. Of course you do. He turned toward the door. Nora's phone remained in her hand. As she followed, her thumb moved across the screen beneath the fold of her coat. She activated the emergency beacon. Not because Sloan had ordered it, because she needed to know who would arrive. The secure room beneath the townhouse contained enough surveillance equipment to support a small intelligence agency. Lucian left 2 guards outside and locked the steel door behind them. Nora connected the isolated terminal to the data copies on his table. She began tracing passport authorization codes through archived federal structures. Lucian stood behind her, not speaking, not pacing, watching. After 20 minutes, Nora found a pattern. The passports aren't issued from one office, she said. The approvals rotate through state, justice, and homeland security. That is why no one sees the whole network. No, someone sees it. She enlarged the authorization chain. Every approval passes through a continuity validation server in Quantico. Controlled by... Nora's fingers stopped over the keyboard. FBI counterintelligence. Lucian's gaze hardened. Her division. Sloan's division. A warning light flashed on the wall. One of Lucian's guards spoke through the intercom. Movement outside. 3 vehicles. No plates. Lucian looked at Nora. She rose slowly. They found us. His eyes moved to her phone. The silence between them became brutal. You activated it, he said. I needed to know. You needed to know whether the man who aimed rifles at you would do it twice? I needed proof. The first explosion struck the front of the townhouse. The floor shuddered. Lights died. Gunfire tore through the windows upstairs. Lucian crossed the room in 2 steps and seized Nora's wrist. You have your proof. His voice was colder than before. Nora pulled against his grip. I made a judgment call. You made yourself a target inside my house. I didn't ask you to bring me here. No. You only made certain men would follow. Another explosion shook dust from the ceiling. Lucian opened a hidden panel behind a bookcase, revealing a narrow stone passage. He pushed Nora inside. You're angry, she said. I am deciding whether anger is useful. Are you going to kill me? Lucian entered after her and sealed the panel. Darkness swallowed them. His hand found her waist in the narrow passage, guiding her forward. No. Why not? His breath moved near her ear. That is the question I am trying not to answer. They emerged into an underground garage as armed men flooded the townhouse above. A second SUV waited. Lucian opened the passenger door. Nora hesitated. He leaned close. Snow and smoke drifted through the open garage entrance behind him. You betrayed my location, he said. Men who have served me for 15 years may be dying upstairs because you wanted certainty. Guilt struck harder than his anger. I'm sorry. I do not need your apology. What do you need? His gaze dropped to her mouth for one dangerous second. Then he stepped back. You alive? The SUV raced north through the storm. Lucian drove this time. No guards, no convoy. Just the two of them, moving through a city, turning white beneath the snow. Nora held the dashboard as he took the coastal highway. Where are your men? Drawing the attackers away. You left them. They know what to do. And if they don't make it out? His hands tightened on the wheel. They will. The answer carried no certainty, only command. Nora looked at the blood spreading slowly beneath the torn shoulder of his jacket. You are hurt. It is superficial. You said that about your face. My face survived. Pull over. No. You're bleeding onto the seat. It is my seat. Pull over, Lucian. The use of his first name changed something. His gaze moved briefly toward her. Then he guided the SUV beneath the shelter of an abandoned roadside station. Nora turned on the interior light. A bullet had cut across the top of his shoulder. She opened the emergency medical kit from beneath the seat. Take off your jacket. Lucian did not move. That was not a request. You issue orders easily for someone in my vehicle, and you ignore basic medical advice easily for someone who claims to control half of Boston. The corner of his mouth almost moved. He removed his jacket. Nora cleaned the wound while snow hissed against the windshield. Lucian remained still beneath her hands. His shirt was dark with blood. Beneath the open collar, black and gray ink crossed one shoulder and disappeared along his chest. The sight of it made her suddenly aware of the confined space, the warmth of his skin, and the way his attention remained fixed entirely on her face. You're staring, he said. I'm checking for additional injuries. On the wrong side. Nora pressed the bandage harder than necessary. His eyes darkened. That was deliberate. You'll recover. Her hand remained against his shoulder. His fingers rose as though he meant to touch her cheek. They stopped a fraction away. The unfinished gesture held more intimacy than contact would have. Why didn't you leave me at the townhouse? She asked. Lucian lowered his hand. Because they came for you. They came for the evidence. No. He looked through the windshield at the empty highway. The shooters at Logan ignored me until I covered you. The team at the townhouse used explosive charges on the room where your beacon was transmitting. They are not cleaning a conspiracy. His gaze returned to hers. They are cleaning you. For the first time that night, Nora felt fear without the protection of analysis. Not abstract danger, not classified names on a screen. Someone inside her own agency had ordered her death. Lucian saw the change in her face. His voice became quieter. You will not be alone again. The promise should have sounded comforting. From him, it sounded like a threat against the entire world. The safe house stood on a rocky stretch of the North Shore, hidden behind frozen trees and a weathered stone wall. It faced the Atlantic, where black waves struck the cliffs beneath the storm. Inside, the house was warmer than Nora expected. There were books stacked near the fireplace, heavy blankets folded over the backs of chairs, and a kitchen stocked with ordinary food rather than the expensive excess of a criminal palace. Lucian locked the doors. Who lives here? Nora asked. No one. It doesn't feel empty. My mother chose it. Nora looked at him. He had removed his tie. Without the formal armor of his coat and jacket, he seemed younger, though no less controlled. Where is she? Dead. Nora waited. Lucian crossed to the fireplace but did not light it. She entered federal witness protection when I was 16, he said. She agreed to testify against men inside my father's organization. Her new address was sold before the relocation was complete. I'm sorry. So was the FBI. His voice was flat. They sent a letter. The meaning settled between them. That's why you built this network, Nora said. I built my organization because weakness is expensive. That isn't what I asked. Lucian turned. The first witness I moved was the agent who tried to warn my mother. He had a wife and 2 daughters. Janice had already sold their location. I moved them through Montreal under identities the government could not trace. You saved them. I stole them from federal custody. Sometimes the law and the right thing aren't the same. Lucian studied her. You still believe there is a difference worth protecting? I have to. Why? Because if everyone decides institutions are beyond saving, men like Sloan own them forever. And men like me? Nora held his gaze. Men like you become the excuse they use. That answer displeased him. It also fascinated him. She could see both. A phone rang in the adjoining room. Lucian answered. One of his men had survived the Beacon Hill attack. 3 were wounded. The attackers had abandoned a vehicle containing federal weapons and airport access maps. They had also found Senator Rourke, alive. She had been moved through a service tunnel beneath Logan and placed inside a private medical transport van. Moretti's men intercepted it near the harbor. Lucian ended the call. Rourke is being brought here. Nora exhaled. Then she can identify who took her. She can identify who sent her to me. An hour later, Senator Evelyn Rourke entered the safe house beneath armed protection. She was 61, silver-haired, and visibly exhausted. A bruise darkened one side of her face. She rejected medical help, accepted black coffee, and stared at Nora with unmistakable regret. You found the passport, Rourke said. Nora's unease sharpened. You knew I would. I arranged for it to enter your review queue. Lucian's expression did not change. Nora looked between them. You used me. Rourke placed the coffee on the table. I needed an analyst outside the compromised command chain. You could have contacted me. If I contacted you, Sloan would have known. Instead, you put a target on me. I believed Moretti would reach you first. Nora turned toward Lucian. He did not deny it. You knew? I knew she intended to force an anomaly into the system. You knew it would come to me? I knew you were the only analyst who had repeatedly identified Janice's travel patterns. The betrayal struck differently because part of her had begun trusting him. Not completely. Enough for it to hurt. You let me walk into that terminal without warning. If I warned you, your reaction would have been observed. So my fear needed to look real? Yes. The answer came without excuse. Nora stepped back. You watched me almost get killed because it protected your operation. Lucian's face hardened. I did not know the attack team was already inside Logan, but you knew I was bait. Silence. Rourke spoke carefully. Nora, we needed someone Sloan believed was still under his control. I trusted him. That is why it worked. Nora turned on the senator. Do not speak about my trust as if it were an asset on a spreadsheet. Rourke lowered her eyes. Lucian did not. He remained in front of Nora and accepted the full force of her anger. What else? She asked him. Nothing. You expect me to believe that? No. His calmness infuriated her. She moved closer. You read my reports. You tracked my assignments. You knew my schedule. How long have you been watching me? 18 months. The room seemed to lose air. Why? At first, because your reports threatened Janice. And after that? His gaze moved over her face slowly, not like a criminal assessing a threat, like a man trying to control an answer. After that became less simple. Nora's pulse stumbled. Rourke looked away. Lucian stepped closer. You noticed patterns trained agents refused to see. You challenged every rejection. You continued working after they moved you to overnight duty and removed you from active briefings. You did not know anyone was reading. That doesn't make surveillance romantic. I did not say it was. What did it become? His eyes held hers. Necessary. The word carried far too much. Nora hated that she understood what he meant. She hated more that some part of her wanted him to say it again. Senator Rourke opened a leather case. Inside was a biometric drive. "This contains the Janus authorization ledger," she said. "Names, payments, murdered witnesses, and diplomatic identities. But the encryption requires access through the FBI continuity server." Nora looked at it. "Quantico?" "No. Sloan moved the mirror server to Boston 6 months ago." "Where?" "Inside a private biometric contractor's vault, beneath the Commonwealth Security Gala." Nora stared. "The gala is tomorrow night." "Tonight," Lucian corrected. "It is after 4. The Commonwealth Security Gala would bring senators, federal directors, defense contractors, foreign diplomats, and Boston's wealthiest donors into the old Customs House, a building connected through historical service tunnels to a federal identity storage facility." Rourke continued. "Sloan will attend. If we access the mirror server, the ledger can be copied beyond his control." "And if we fail?" Nora asked. "Janus erases itself." Lucian closed the case. "We will not fail." Nora looked at him. "You don't get to decide that for me. You are not entering that building. I'm the only person here with federal biometric access. I will find another way. You used me as bait at an airport, but now you're worried about a gala?" His jaw tightened. "Yes." The honesty silenced her. Lucian stepped closer. "I was willing to risk an analyst I had never met." His voice dropped. "I am no longer willing to risk you." The admission was not tender. It was angry, as if his own protectiveness offended him. Nora felt it move through her anyway. "You don't own the decision," she said. "No." His gaze lowered briefly to her lips. "But I will control every thread around it." The gala glittered above Boston the following night. Snow had stopped, leaving the city bright beneath winter moonlight. The Customs House tower rose over the harbor, its arched windows glowing gold, while black cars lined the entrance. Nora arrived on Lucian's arm. The official story was simple. She was no longer an abducted FBI analyst. She was Lucian Moretti's companion. The public appearance created instant scandal and gave his security team a reason to remain close to her inside the building. Nora wore a midnight blue gown she had selected herself from the options delivered to the safe house. It followed her curves without apology, elegant and commanding. For once, no one had suggested darker fabric to make her appear smaller, or a higher neckline to make her less noticeable. Lucian had looked at her when she descended the stairs, and said nothing for several seconds. Then he had dismissed every other person from the room. Now, beneath the lights of the gala, his hand rested at the small of her back. Warm, controlled, possessive enough to be convincing. "People are staring," Nora murmured. "They always stare. At you. At what they cannot have." She looked up. His expression remained calm, but his thumb moved once against the fabric at her waist. "Is that part of the performance?" she asked. "No." The answer came too quickly. Across the ballroom, Deputy Director Marcus Sloan stood beside senior officials. His gaze found Nora immediately. Shock crossed his face. Then relief. Perfectly performed. He approached with 2 agents. "Nora." He stopped several feet away, looking from her to Lucian. "Thank God you're alive." Lucian's hand remained against her back. Sloan extended his hand. "Nora, come with me." She did not move. "I'm here voluntarily." "That is what he instructed you to say." Lucian spoke calmly. "Agent Hayes does not require instructions to disagree with you." Sloan ignored him. "Nora, we know Moretti manipulated the passport system. We know he arranged Senator Rourke's disappearance. You know a lot without having found her." A flicker of irritation crossed Sloan's face. Then Caleb Rowan appeared behind him. Caleb looked exhausted. Guilt lived openly in his eyes. "Nora," he said, "please." Lucian's fingers tightened against her waist. Jealousy was too ordinary a word for what entered his expression. It was quieter, more dangerous. Caleb saw it too. "I need to speak with her alone." "No," Lucian said. "She is an FBI employee. She is standing beside me." Nora turned slightly. "I can answer for myself." Lucian looked down at her. For a moment, the ballroom disappeared. There was only the conflict in his eyes, the instinct to control, the reluctant understanding that she would not tolerate it. His hand left her waist. 3 minutes, he said. I didn't ask permission. No. His gaze moved toward Caleb. I was informing him how long he has. Nora led Caleb toward a balcony overlooking the harbor. Cold air entered through the open doors. What happened at the terminal? She asked. Caleb kept his voice low. Sloan told us Moretti's men were holding you hostage. The team orders came through encrypted command. Someone aimed at me. I saw. And you said nothing. I froze. The admission hurt more than a lie. Caleb reached into his jacket. Lucian moved instantly from across the ballroom. His men closed in. Caleb raised both hands and slowly withdrew a security card. I'm helping you, he said. The biometric vault is below the east staircase. This card opens the first barrier. Nora took it. Why? Because the shooter who aimed at you was found dead this morning. Sloan signed the evidence transfer order before the body arrived. Caleb looked toward Lucian. I don't trust him. You don't have to. I'm trying to trust you. Nora slipped the card into her glove. You had that chance at the airport. Pain crossed his face. I know. Music began inside the ballroom. Lucian approached. Caleb stepped away. I hope you know what you're doing, he said. So do I. After he disappeared into the crowd, Lucian stood beside her on the balcony. You cared for him, he said. It was not a question. He was my friend. Was he more? Nora almost smiled, despite the danger. Are you jealous? No. You look like you're deciding where to hide his body. That is not jealousy. It is planning. She turned toward the harbor. Lucian stepped behind her, close enough that the heat of him reached through the winter air. Dance with me, he said. We're supposed to be breaking into a federal vault. The east staircase is visible from the ballroom. Sloan is watching you. So dancing is tactical? No. He offered his hand. For once, Nora chose not to challenge him. They returned to the ballroom. Lucian drew her into the slow movement of the crowd. His hand settled at her waist, more carefully this time. Nora's palm rested against his shoulder, near the bandage beneath his jacket. You're still injured, she murmured. You sound disappointed. I'd be disappointed if you bled on my dress. His eyes warmed briefly. The orchestra played beneath the chandeliers. Around them, politicians, executives, and foreign dignitaries pretended not to watch the mafia boss dancing with the FBI analyst he had allegedly abducted. Lucian moved with quiet precision. Nora felt every place they touched, his hand at her waist, her fingers against his shoulder, the dangerous closeness of his face. You knew Rourke would use me, she said. Yes, you should have told me. Yes. The agreement surprised her. Why didn't you? Because I believed control mattered more than your trust. And now, his gaze lowered. Now I understand the cost. Her breath caught. You don't become honest just because you admit you manipulated me. No. His thumb moved once against her waist. But I can become honest next. The music slowed. Nora looked into the face of a man feared by an entire city and saw something he would have killed to hide from anyone else. Fear. Not of Sloan, not of the government, of losing whatever fragile connection had formed between them. You cannot protect me by taking away every choice, she whispered. I know. Do you? No. His jaw tightened. But I am trying because you asked. He leaned closer. For one suspended moment, Nora thought he would kiss her. His gaze dropped to her lips. His hand tightened at her waist. Then the lights flickered. Lucian stopped before touching her. The interruption felt almost painful. Nora saw Sloan leave the ballroom. The server, she said. They moved. The east staircase descended beneath the customs house into older stone corridors. Lucian's men disabled 2 cameras while Nora used Caleb's card to open the first barrier. At the biometric vault, her FBI credentials activated the outer lock. The second lock required a retinal scan. Rourke's drive supplied the authorization code. Inside, server columns glowed blue in the darkness. Nora connected the drive. Janice opened. Thousands of identities filled the screen. Federal witnesses, undercover agents, diplomats, judges, children relocated with their parents, all cataloged with prices beside their names. Nora's stomach turned. This isn't a protection program, she whispered. It's an auction. Lucian stood behind her. His face became stone. Nora searched the authorization history. Every transaction led to the same command signature. M. Sloan. Then another file opened automatically. Nora Hayes. Her personnel record filled the screen. Psychological assessments, financial history, home address, photographs taken outside her apartment, copies of her reports. A status marker glowed beside her name. Termination authorized. Nora stopped breathing. Lucian saw it. The temperature in the room seemed to change. "Who took those photographs?" she asked. "Not my people." His voice had become frighteningly quiet. A recording began playing from the drive. Senator Rourke's voice filled the vault. "If this file opens, Nora Hayes has accessed Janice. She was selected because she is the only analyst who consistently detected the identity rotations. Deputy Director Sloan intentionally kept her in a low-authority position so her work could be used without attracting oversight." Nora closed her eyes. Every dismissed report, every denied promotion, every overnight assignment. Sloan had not underestimated her. He had buried her because he knew exactly how capable she was. The vault door slammed shut. Gas hissed through the ventilation system. Lucian pulled Nora's gown over her mouth and fired at the vent. The lights died. Men entered through a rear access door wearing respirators. Lucian shot the first two. A third struck him from behind. Nora reached for the emergency alarm, but someone seized her arms. Through the spreading haze, she saw Lucian fighting 3 men at once, blood darkening his shirt. "Sloan wants her alive," someone shouted. Lucian turned at the sound of Nora's struggle. That single moment of distraction cost him. A metal bar struck his head. He fell to one knee. "Lucian!" His eyes found hers through the gas. He tried to rise. More men descended on him. A hood was pulled over Nora's head. The last thing she heard before darkness swallowed her was Lucian Moretti roaring her name. Nora woke inside a decommissioned customs facility beneath Logan Airport. Her wrists were secured to a steel chair. Fluorescent lights buzzed above passport printing machines, biometric scanners, and cabinets filled with blank diplomatic documents. Deputy Director Marcus Sloan stood in front of her. He had removed his gala jacket and rolled up his sleeves, as if preparing for ordinary work. "I wish you had trusted me," he said. Nora's head pounded. "I did." Sloan's expression softened. "That is why this is unfortunate. You tried to kill me. I tried to contain an unstable situation. You sold witnesses. I redistributed identities to murderers, to governments, corporations, intelligence services, and organizations capable of protecting American interests when official channels failed. You put prices beside children's names. Collateral records are necessary for complete identity packages." Nora stared at the man who had recruited her. He had visited her mother's funeral. He had recommended her for advanced intelligence training. He had sent birthday messages every year. "You kept me on overnight duty so you could steal my work. I kept you where I could protect you. From promotion? From attention." He stepped closer. "You are the best pattern analyst I have ever trained. You see systems before other people realize they exist. Janice needs that ability. You authorized my death. Only after Moretti reached you." Sloan crouched in front of her. "He changes people, Nora. He makes violence feel like safety. He convinces intelligent women that possession is protection. He threw himself over me while your agents fired." A shadow crossed Sloan's face. "You think that means he loves you?" Nora said nothing. Sloan smiled without warmth. "Lucian Moretti does not love. He acquires." "Then why are you afraid he's coming?" For the first time, Sloan's composure slipped. A distant alarm sounded. One of the passport machines shut down. Then another. The facility lights flickered. An agent rushed into the room. "All private departures have been grounded." Sloan stood. "By whose authority?" "No authority. Vehicles are blocking the service roads. The fuel system is offline. Communications are being jammed." Another alarm began. On the security monitor, black SUVs appeared across Logan Airport. They moved through snow-covered service roads, surrounding terminals, hangars, and runway access points. Moretti men emerged from maintenance tunnels. Private jets stopped taxiing. Security gates locked. The entire airport was closing one section at a time. A message appeared across every computer screen. Release Nora Hayes. Sloan stared at it. Nora's heart struck hard against her ribs. Lucian was alive. The airport intercom crackled. His voice filled the underground facility. Calm, cold, unmistakable. Marcus Sloan. Every person in the room went still. You have 8 minutes to bring Nora Hayes to runway 4. Sloan grabbed a radio. Trace the transmission. Lucian continued. If she is harmed, no aircraft leaves Boston tonight. No vehicle exits the airport. Every Janus identity will be delivered to every intelligence service and news organization in the country. Nora closed her eyes briefly. He had found the copied ledger. Sloan looked at her. You did this. No. She met his stare. You did. The intercom clicked off. Sloan ordered his agents to move her. They cut her wrists free and dragged her through the underground corridor toward a diplomatic hangar. Outside, snow had begun falling again. A white diplomatic jet waited beside runway 4 with its engines running. Federal vehicles surrounded it. At the opposite end of the runway, black SUVs formed a wall beneath the lights. Lucian stood in front of them. He wore no overcoat. Blood stained the side of his shirt where the vault attackers had beaten him. A cut crossed his temple, yet he stood completely still, while armed men filled the snow behind him. Nora had never seen anything more dangerous, or more beautiful. Sloan pulled her against him and pressed a pistol beneath her ribs. Lucian's expression did not change. Only his eyes revealed what seeing her did to him. Fear, rage, relief so violent it looked like pain. You shut down an international airport, Sloan called. Lucian's voice carried through the snow. She was inside it. That is your defense? It is the only explanation you are receiving. Sloan tightened his grip on Nora. Order your men back. Lucian looked at her. Not at the gun, not at Sloan. At her. Are you injured? Nora almost laughed from the impossible tenderness of the question. My wrists. Lucian's gaze dropped to the red marks. Something lethal entered his face. Sloan pressed the gun harder against her. Back away. Lucian took one step forward. Federal agents raised their weapons. Moretti's men did the same. The runway became a frozen line between two armies. Lucian, Nora said. He stopped. Sloan whispered near her ear. He will sacrifice every man here before he releases you. Nora looked toward the diplomatic jet. Its exterior lights pulsed in a repeating sequence. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short, a maintenance signal. Caleb Rowan stood near the fuel truck behind Sloan's agents. He was signaling her. Nora glanced toward the runway control box beside the hangar. The emergency lighting network. She understood. Sloan began pulling her toward the jet. Lucian moved again. Do not put her on that aircraft. You have no authority here. Lucian's voice lowered. I have enough. Nora let her knees buckle. Sloan instinctively tightened his hold. At the same moment, Caleb struck the emergency control. Every runway light ignited at maximum intensity. White brilliance exploded across the snow. Agents shouted and covered their eyes. Nora drove her elbow backward into Sloan's ribs. The gun fired. Lucian crossed the distance before she saw him move. He struck Sloan's arm aside and pulled Nora against his chest as bullets tore across the runway. He turned his body over hers, again, just as he had in the terminal. A bullet struck him beneath the shoulder. His body jerked. Nora screamed his name. Lucian remained standing. He fired twice toward the agents advancing from the jet, then forced Nora behind the engine barrier. You're shot. Stay down. Lucian, I said stay down. Blood spread across his white shirt. He turned back toward the runway. Nora grabbed his hand. For 1 second, the mafia boss who commanded an army stopped because she touched him. Don't leave me here, she said. The anger left his face. Something more vulnerable replaced it. I am not leaving you anywhere. Sloan crawled toward his fallen weapon. Nora saw him. So did Lucian. Lucian raised his gun. Wait, Nora said. Sloan froze. Lucian's finger remained on the trigger. He deserves a trial, Nora said. He deserves nothing. He deserves to have every name, every payment, and every murder read into a public record. He will escape. Then we make the evidence impossible to bury. Sloane's hand moved closer to the weapon. Lucian's eyes stayed on Nora. If I let him live, he will continue trying to reach you. If you kill him now, he becomes proof that everything he said about you was true. Lucian's jaw tightened. The choice cost him. Nora could see it. His mother's death. Years of revenge. Every witness he had failed to save. All of it stood between his weapon and Sloane. Lucian lowered the gun. For her, Sloane seized his weapon. Lucian fired once. The shot struck Sloane's shoulder and spun him onto the snow before he could aim. Federal agents surrounded him. Caleb kicked the gun away and forced Sloane face down. Nora turned back to Lucian. His knees gave way. She caught him as he fell. And they sank together into the snow. Moretti's men rushed toward them, but Lucian raised one blood-covered hand. They stopped. Even wounded, he controlled the runway. Nora pressed both hands against his chest. "Stay with me." His face had gone pale. "You told me not to leave. That was not permission to get shot. You are difficult to protect. You locked down Logan Airport. You were missing. That is not a reasonable response." "No." His eyes remained on hers. It was the only one I had. Nora's vision blurred. She had refused to cry in front of Sloane. She could not stop now. Lucian lifted his hand and touched her cheek. This time, he completed the gesture. His thumb brushed beneath her eye. "You trusted me," he said. "I'm reconsidering. Do it later." His hand fell. Lucian. Men lifted him onto a medical stretcher. Nora refused to release his hand. The airport remained locked down until sunrise. By then, Senator Rourke had delivered the Janus ledger to 3 federal judges, the Senate Intelligence Committee, and 4 independent inspectors general. Caleb Rowan had copied the files to external servers. Marcus Sloane survived surgery and was placed under armed federal guard. Within 48 hours, 12 officials were arrested. 3 foreign diplomats disappeared before warrants could be issued. Janus collapsed publicly enough that no agency could deny it had existed. Lucian Moretti disappeared from the hospital before federal agents arrived to question him. Nora was not surprised. What surprised her was how empty the room felt after he left. For 6 weeks, she heard nothing from him. No messages, no black SUVs outside her apartment, no silent men following her through grocery stores. Nothing. The FBI placed Nora on administrative leave, then offered her a promotion once the hearings began. She declined. She testified publicly instead. She spoke for 7 hours before the Senate committee, describing the passport network, the murdered witnesses, the internal suppression of her reports, and the culture that had treated intelligence analysts as invisible until someone needed their work stolen. She did not excuse Lucian's crimes. She did not reveal the locations of the witnesses he had rescued. When asked whether he had abducted her, she answered, "Lucian Moretti removed me from an assassination attempt organized by senior federal personnel." When asked whether she had developed an inappropriate relationship with him, she looked directly at the cameras. "I developed an accurate understanding of who protected me and who did not." The clip played across every network in the country. Still, Lucian did not contact her. By early spring, Nora established an independent identity integrity office, funded through court-seized Janus accounts. Its purpose was simple: audit federal witness movements, detect identity manipulation, and give endangered witnesses a channel outside compromised chains of command. She worked from an office overlooking Boston Harbor. Her new staff listened when she spoke. They credited her reports with her name. They did not describe her as dependable when they meant invisible. Yet every evening, when black cars moved below her window, some part of her looked for him. She told herself it was vigilance. She knew it was not. 3 months after the airport lockdown, Nora returned to Logan for the first time. The private terminal had been repaired. New glass filled the windows where bullets had shattered them. Security procedures had changed. Diplomatic passports now passed through an independent verification system, based partly on Nora's recommendations. She stood alone near the runway observation window as evening snow drifted over Boston Harbor. A black aircraft landed. Her breath caught. The stairs lowered. Lucian Moretti descended without a visible security detail. He wore a black overcoat and moved more slowly than before, one shoulder still healing beneath the fabric. He entered the terminal carrying a single passport. No guards followed him. No tactical team waited. No alarms sounded. Nora remained beside the window. Lucian stopped several feet away. For the first time since she had known him, he looked uncertain. It was almost more frightening than his power. "You disappeared," she said. "Federal attention became inconvenient. You could have sent a message. I wrote several. You didn't send them. No. Why?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because every promise I considered sounded like another form of control." The honesty struck softly. Nora folded her arms. "So, you decided silence was better?" "No." His gaze moved over her face. "I decided badly." She tried not to smile. "Why are you here?" Lucian held out the passport. Nora accepted it. The cover was black. Inside was his photograph, his real name, his real date of birth, and no diplomatic immunity. "No aliases," he said. "No dead man's identity. No hidden authorization." Nora looked up. "That seems reckless for you." "It is." "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Flag it." She raised an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" "Lucian Moretti has entered the country with the intention of interfering in a federal analyst's life. I'm no longer an FBI analyst. Then I am interfering in the life of an independent director. That sounds worse." "It is more accurate." She closed the passport. "You still haven't told me why you came." Lucian stepped closer. The terminal lights reflected in his dark eyes. "I have spent my life making certain no one could take anything from me again." His voice was calm, but she heard the effort beneath it. "Then you arrived, saw one false passport, and became the only person capable of taking my judgment, my attention, and every reasonable instinct I possessed." Nora's heartbeat deepened. "That doesn't sound healthy." "It is not. At least you're honest. You asked me to become honest next." He lifted one hand, stopped just before touching her. Still waiting, still trying. Nora closed the distance herself. His fingers settled against her cheek. The restraint in him broke quietly. Not into violence, into relief. "I cannot promise to become harmless," he said. "I would know you were lying. I cannot promise that I will stop wanting to control every door between you and danger. You'll have to learn. I know. You cannot use me as bait again. Never. You cannot lock down an international airport every time I miss a phone call." His thumb moved over her cheek. "I can attempt moderation." "That is not a promise. It is the most honest answer I have." Nora looked at the man the FBI had trained her to fear. He was still dangerous, still powerful, still capable of terrible things. But he had lowered a weapon when revenge was finally within reach, because she asked him to choose something better. And now he stood before her without guards, without aliases, and without the armor of certainty. "What do you want, Lucian?" His eyes held hers. "You." The word was quiet, absolute. "Not as a witness, not as an asset, not as someone I can hide inside one of my houses." His hand moved to the back of her neck, gentle despite the strength in it. "I want the woman who saw through a dead man's passport, challenged me while bullets were breaking glass, betrayed my location because she needed the truth, and still believed I could make a better choice when I had given her no reason to believe it." Nora's throat tightened. "That woman is going to make your life extremely difficult. I have missed the difficulty." She kissed him. Lucian went completely still. For one heartbeat, the feared mafia boss seemed stunned by the simple fact that she had chosen him. Then his arm closed around her waist. The kiss deepened slowly, carrying every unfinished moment between them. The roadside station, the gala dance, the runway, the hospital room she had awakened to find empty. He did not claim her. He held her as if choice was the most precious thing anyone had ever placed in his hands. Outside the terminal windows, snow moved across the runway. Aircraft lights burned against the dark harbor. 3 months earlier, Logan Airport had gone into lockdown because Nora Hayes flagged Lucian Moretti's passport. Tonight, every gate stood open, and for the first time in his life, Lucian Moretti waited for the woman he loved to decide where they would go next.